Good morning, members. We have a quorum. I call to order the meeting. In the 2024 legislative session, as at the last meeting, we have approved 8 projects. The total funding allocation amount to $63.3753 billion. There are 2 papers to be discussed in the meeting today. Both of them are funding proposals submitted by the administration. The funding allocation involved in the 2 funding proposals amount to $29.3115 billion. If all of the funding proposals are approved by members, we would have approved 10 projects. The total funding allocation would amount to $92.6868 billion. Netting out the funding allocation for land acquisition and computerization, which amount to $27.097 billion. The funding allocation for works project would be $65.6771 billion. I remind members that if you have any direct or indirect pecuniary interest in relation to the items of discussion today, please act in accordance with Rule 83A of the Rules of Procedure. Disclose the nature of the interest before you speak. May I also draw members' attention to Rule 84 of the Rules of Procedure regarding voting in case of direct pecuniary interest. Agenda item number 1, 787CL Hongkyo Hachi New Development Area Advanced Works Phase 3. 829CL Hongshui-kyo Hachi New Development Area Stage 2 Works. 54CG the District Cooling System for Hongshui-kyo Hachi New Development Area Phase 1. And 38CA Special Ex-gratia Cash Allowance for the second phase development for the Hongshui-kyo Hachi New Development Area. This paper proposes to upgrade part of 787CL, 829CL, and 54CG to Category A. The estimated cost is $5.6748 billion, $22.72 billion, and $3.21 billion, respectively, in money of the day prices. It also proposed to allocate $20.4 million for a special ex-gratia cash allowance to subhead 38CA under head 701 land acquisition. The administration consulted the panel on development on the 23rd of January 2024. Members generally supported the administration submitting the proposal to this subcommittee for consideration. The salient point of the discussion of the panel has been circulated to members by email on the 8th of April 2024. From the administration, well, we have quite a number of government officials attending this meeting. The list has been circulated to members by email. I will not read them out one by one. Members who would like to put questions, well, I will read out the names of the members who have pressed the button. There are a total of 10 of them, including Mr. Chen Hailong, Ms. Chen Yipming, Mr. Lam Chen Sing, Dr. Lo Wai Kwok, Mr. Andrew Lam, Mr. Lau Kwok Fan, Mr. Lee Chen Kan, Mr. Yang Wikit, Mr. Stanley Ng, Mr. Chen Xiu Hong, and Mr. Chi Kwok Kan. 4 minutes per member, including question and answer. Mr. Shang Hailong, please. Thank you, Chairman. For the Khao Yi Chao Artificial Islands, well, it has been suspended. I support the development of the Northern Metropolis. I hope that we can expedite its development so that we can build an INT hub there. The proposals today have to do with the Konshem Western Highway and the modern services and logistics hub that we are about to create. And according to paragraph 14 of the paper, regarding the cash allowance for affected squatters and household, is the 2013 standard still applicable today? Are we dispersing $600,000 of subsidy regardless of the area occupied by the squatters? In 2013, we dispersed the cash allowance once. And did anyone expand the area of the squatters just to get more cash allowance? Now we're developing Shui, Hashun, and we have a Northern Metropolis coordination office to coordinate all the development. But some areas in Yunlong are actually under the purview of Home Affairs Department. How do we coordinate the manpower on the community level and the manpower in the NMCO so that we can tackle the problems that we have? Who will take the question? Ms. Ho, Permanent Secretary. Thank you, Chairman. For the last question regarding how the NMCO work with government departments and the community, I will invite Mr. Yao to answer that question. As for the first question of Mr. Sheng about paragraph 14, the special ex-gratia cash allowance. When we develop the new territories and if squatters and business undertakings are affected, in 2018, the Finance Committee approved a set of ex-gratia compensation and rehousing arrangement. And it's being executed and adopted. Prior to that, in 2013, for Kutong North, Fanlin North, and Hongshui Q, another set of arrangements was being passed. For the arrangement passed in 2013, the allowance to be dispersed may be higher than that arrangement approved in 2018. So at the end, we decide to give squatters' households a choice to choose either the 2013 or 2018 arrangement. For some squatters' household, if the size of their squatters is smaller, then they are entitled to a larger sum of allowance under the 2013 arrangement. So we keep both the 2013 and 18 arrangements so that the affected squatter household have a choice. As for a second question, regarding how we make sure that not a large number of squatters would be moving in, but we have actually a very clear set of requirements on the eligibility of squatters. The squatter household would have to have registered with us. So we have already identified the eligible households, and we have some criteria on how and requirements on how long the squatter household should have resided in the affected area. For the other question, I would defer to Mr. Yao. Thank you for your question. The role of the NMCO is to promote and coordinate the development of the Northern Metropolis. As a part of the Development Bureau, one of its major tasks is to promote land development. NMCO works with different departments and we work on various policies. We maintain close liaison with various government departments, including Home Affairs Department and their district office in the North District and Yunlong. We keep close liaison with the community. Now we are developing Hongshui and Laofaoshan. And when we are working on that, we actually keep in close liaison with the Home Affairs Department. And we work with them on, for example, building community halls. In terms of publicity and promotion, we also work with the community. When the new term of district councils took office, we actually met with the members of the North District Council, and we are going to the Yunlong District Council to brief them on the proposal. Next, Ms. Chen Yuming. Thank you, Chairman. I speak in support of the Hongshui Hachin Works project. 1 month earlier, we discussed the proposal in the panel on development. I would like to follow up on 2 items, including the cost. The Financial Secretary established this financing committee, a committee on the financing of major development projects, and the administration seek funding application of $29 billion from the Legislative Council. After this proposal has been approved, how much would we have to spend for the next stage of the work? According to paragraph 14 of the paper, it is said that the neighborhood will be affected and the government will set aside sewage manholes to connect to the buildings in the neighborhood. A lot of new territories village are still using septic tank today. That is why I fully support works on sewage system in the new territories. Now, $29 billion are to be spent. Can you undertake to reserve sewage manholes in villages near the new development area? Permanent Secretary, thank you. Ms. Chan has 2 questions. As for the second question regarding sewage system of the villages in new territories, perhaps I defer to Joyce for that question. I will first answer your first question. For Hongshui NDA Stage 2, we're seeking funding of about $30 billion. And there is one stage that remains, or one phase that remains. Which involves development proposal of Laofaoshan. So when we seek funding for the next phase, that will have to do with the development of Laofaoshan. But we don't have a concrete figure yet because we are still conducting consultation on land use, and after that we will come up with a detailed design before we can arrive at an estimated cost for the works project. We believe that we will only come to the LegCo for funding allocation in a few years' time. The Financial Secretary proposes to issue bonds to fund the Northern Metropolis development. I think that the administration will benefit from that.
Ms. Lau, thank you. In our planning, we try to build in sewage facilities near the villages, and where technically possible, we would provide for sewage manholes to facilitate future connection. Thank you. Any follow-up? As much as possible, that means you can't undertake. Well, it depends on the technical feasibility. We will try to resolve all the technical issues and provide for sewage manholes to facilitate connection. So the overall goal is to help remote villages. Next one, Mr. Lam Chen Sing. Thank you, Chairman. The paper mentions that within this district there will be a smart and green mass transit system. I would like to find out more. You have an initial plan, and that will run for 16 kilometers, and there will be also trackless trams to be deployed. Now you are seeking funding now. Do you have the specifics of this system to tell us? And what is the timeline for implementing the project? So if you have the details now, then it works better for your overall planning. If you don't have any plans now, would you be able to have this infrastructure-led development approach? Because it takes time to develop such a system. For the high-tech transport system, you are trying to seek contractors to express interest, and a couple of years later, you will do tendering. Now, this system, if it is not available by 2030, will the overall development be affected? Secondly, I noticed that some residents will move in 2024. But then the Hongshui station along Tuma Line will only be commissioned 6 years later. So in the interim period, transport may not be very convenient, and there will be a lot of work sites, and there will be traffic diversions in the area. So how will it affect the lives of the residents moving in so soon? And then I also note that you will spend $2 billion to build a regional park with the flood storage lakes. I think this is a good arrangement. This is a place for the residents to enjoy, and you can also do serve as a flooding, anti-flooding function. And then you spend quite an amount on drainage and sewage. So have you assessed the effectiveness? Because in Hongshui and Hacheng, there are sporadic reports of flooding. And after all these facilities have been installed, will you be able to withstand, say, the rainstorms with a return period of, say, 100 years? 3 questions from the member. I would defer to Mr. Lau Ms. Lau to talk about the regional park with the flood storage lakes, and also take the question about the capability of our drainage system to be put in place. First question, about the smart and green mass transit system. We have certain plans in our mind. The CEDD has previously conducted public consultation. And on the alignment, say, for example, in the first phase, it will go from our LRT likewise station to the logistics land in the NDA. The alignment has been fixed. Now, what hasn't been fixed? Like what the member said. What kind of mass transit system or green transit system should be put in place? Now, we are thinking about a trackless tram system. And we also are thinking about green buses, articulated buses, and so on. We will work with the Transport and Logistics Bureau, and we would invite expressions of interest later on to invite those who are interested in taking up the work or project. And then you mentioned that the Hongshui station will be commissioned in 2030 and the population intake will be in 2024. But then the number of residents involved in that intake will be relatively small. And the bulk of the population will move in 2030. So if the station is commissioned in 2030, it's exactly to serve the huge population who will be moving in that year. Now, before that, we will be providing shuttle buses for residents who moved in before 2030, and they can go to the nearest West Rail station to connect to the railway system. Ms. Lau from the CEDD. In the design of our Hongshui-Hacheng NDA, we have looked at the drainage needs of the entire area. We have 2 facilities. In the regional park, we have the flood storage lakes. The capacity is 220,000 square meters. Another facility is the open space, and the capacity is 51,000 square meters. These are 2 large-scale anti-flooding facilities. They are the Hong Kong's largest facilities. They will be able to cope with the needs, the drainage needs there. The member asked about the capability to withstand major rainstorms. Do you have any parameters? We are satisfying the DSD's requirements, so we can withstand rainstorm with a return period of 200 years. Dr. Lo Wai Kwok. First, I speak in support of this project. Hong Shui Kiu Ha Chun Phase 2 works. And there are many tasks involved, including site formation, transport infrastructure, drainage, sewage systems, and so on and so forth. It is a major works project. Well, on the surface, the amount seems to be astronomical, but I think your proposal is reasonable. For developing Hong Shui Kiu Ha Chun, the planning started way before the Northern Metropolis. And this is a major portion of the Western NT, and it can connect with Qianhai Nanshan district in Shenzhen. It will be interacting with these districts. So it carries a bigger sort of economic mission, and this positioning is just right. And then I have to commend the relevant government representatives who are keen to communicate with us, and they have been asking us all the time whether we were supported. And also in terms of the preparation of the documents, I have to compliment for their good work. There are breakdowns in page 9 of the category of works in terms of the cost, and in Annex 26, you have listed out the unit construction cost of similar projects in recent years, and all these have been set out clearly. Now, in future, if we have this kind of document for project proposals in the future, we can do away with all our queries. So this has to be complemented. My question is about green infrastructure. There is a major green green infrastructure is a DCS. I am over it. Starting from the one in Kai Tak, I was involved in the work, and I think the system has achieved good results. I think it's just right we take forward such projects, but we should go beyond that. Well, recently we have been talking about MSW charging, and the more we know that for an NDA with so much commercial land and natural land, we have to be mindful about how we should handle waste and food waste. In the future, you may come with further proposals on these areas. But today, can you explain to us, especially for Hong Shui Kiu Ha Chun, the details of these kind of green infrastructure? Who will take the question? In a minute, I'll defer to Ms. Lau to respond to the question on green infrastructure. Are there any green infrastructure on top of DCS? There are different systems. The member mentioned about waste and food waste handling or processing. This time, we have a very comprehensive cycling and pedestrian footpath network to encourage green mobility or green walking. In a minute, I would like to defer to Ms. Lau to respond. And this time, we know that the project is massive and the sum is very substantial, and members are very concerned about the cost. So we deliberately try to provide more information. But should we be doing that for every project hereafter? Well, it depends on individual project. If the sum is really substantial, then I think we need to do the same. Ms. Lau, in Hung Shui Kiu NDA, we have done a lot in planning. In urban design, we have reserved a lot of green space. And then on infrastructure, the PS refer to certain facilities. There will also be common underground channels. We hope that there will be common underground channels in which we can put in, say, the electricity cables, obviating the need for duplicate excavation of the ground. And then for flush water for toilets, in Yunlong South, we have a tertiary wastewater processing plant, and that will be used for as flushing water for Hung Shui Kiu. And then we also have some other smart facilities. Smart lampposts, sensors will be installed. And we hope that that can facilitate the development of smart transport. And we look to adopting new technologies as well to facilitate members of the public to use such facilities. And then we also talk to the EPD to reserve space in the lampposts for them to use. So much for my supplement. Chairman, waste and food waste processing. Well, cuts across different departments. Now, since there are so much controversies on waste charging, and we are paying attention to recycling facilities and so on. So on this aspect, I think if you plan for new NDA, you must be very meticulous in your thinking. Mr. Andrew Lam. Well, we have learned what is said in the two sessions, and the permanent secretary is right in pointing out that, well, very quality discussion can come from quality documents. Two questions about land resumption cost. We're talking about $30 billion, and in actual fact, you were dispersing $29 billion. And the line is drawn in 2023 October. I'd like to understand that when we come to the actual land resumption exercise, will that amount be adjusted further? And then coming back to brownfield operations, I understand that you have done a lot of work. But after all, the impact is quite substantial. I remember that in mid-March, the Yunlong Inno Park, there will be a substantial area or substantial floor space to be built. Have you gotten any initial response from the market? If that goes smoothly, then that will be good. But if it doesn't go smoothly, how will it impact on the land resumption exercise? Have you made the assessment?
Hi, Ms. Ho, Permanent Secretary, please. Mr. Lam's two questions. At Annex 27 of Enclosure 1 about the land resumption, it is mentioned that $3.37 billion or $33.7 billion are involved. And the line was drawn in October 2023. We review the amount once every 6 months, so the figure has been effective in April, this year. Compared to October last year, we have adjusted the figure downwards by 12%. As we have not started land resumption yet, so we will be making use of the figure in April for the compensation. We have made certain calculation. If we make use of the latest figure, this $33.7 billion can be adjusted downwards to about $29 billion. So $4 billion of cost can be saved as a result. If land exchange is successful, then we don't have to disperse as much cash allowance for compensation. As for the Yunlong Inno Park, we have invited tender earlier, and we hope that it will be successful. When we formulated the tender, we have adopted a double envelope approach. We do not just look at the price proposal. We hope that by this, the tender exercise would be smooth. The member asked what happens if the tender fails. If that's actually the case, we will review the reason for that, and we will see if we will amend certain provisions in the tender documents. Thank you. Next, Mr. Lau Kwok Fan. Thank you, Chairman. I have to declare interest. Our company works very closely with the Development Bureau. So some questions has been addressed by the Development Bureau, but I still have a number of them. It was unfortunate that the dedicated housing estate in Hongshui-Kyu had suffered from a fire, and it went up to number 4 alarm. I wonder if the rehousing exercise will be delayed by the fire. I know that you have a flood storage lake. I have visited the village along with members of the rural committee. They want the administration to improve some of the flood storage tanks as well. So I wonder if the government will improve some of the flood storage tanks or lakes in the village. My third question, as for the design of Lao Fao Shan, will you separate the 2 sewage treatment works? The residents in Lao Fao Shan are asking if you can place the 2 sewage treatment works at the same location without separating them. My fourth question, there is a drop in voltage in the power supplied by the CLP. So I wonder if the government will put the power supply system underground. The government said that they reviewed the land compensation amount every 6 months. Now the total amount has dropped by 26% from 1,267 to 1,114. The government said that they will make compensation according to the figure on the 1st of April 2024. I wonder if you will adjust the amount further downward. Will you make reference to the URA by freezing the amount at a certain point of time? Ms. Ho, Permanent Secretary, please. The members put a few questions. He asked if the fire yesterday would affect the rehousing arrangement. The fire broke out in phase 2 of the dedicated rehousing estate. We announced that the population intake at the end of this year will happen at phase 1 of the dedicated rehousing estate involving some 700 flats. So we think that the first batch of population intake will not be affected. I watched the news just now, and I think that the fire has been brought under control. As to how the fire will affect the progress of construction, the Housing Authority would make relevant assessment afterwards. We still are not sure about the effect. But please be rest assured that we still have other dedicated rehousing estates in Parkwall Road, for example. The population intake can happen early next year. In Area 24 in Kutong North, we also have another dedicated rehousing estate. As for a second question, I will defer to Ms. Lau on Hachun and flood storage lakes, along with the drainage problems. You asked if the 2 sewage treatment works can be combined. We will look at it at the next stage. We are still conducting land use review for Lau Fao Shan. There's still room for reconsideration. You asked if we can put the power supply cable overhead to underground. The Lands Department has a set of standards. The locations of the cables depend on the relevant location. As for the land compensation, or as for the ex-gratia payment, the affected household can lodge appeal. Now I'll defer to Ms. Lau to talk about the flood storage lakes. We looked at the facilities on flood attenuation earlier, and there's open space that can be used for flood retention. And we have included such facilities in the proposal. Next, Mr. Lee Chen-kan. Thank you, Chairman. Some members have commended the comprehensive set of documents that the government has prepared. Now, the funding proposal involves some $20 billion. We're having a fiscal deficit. I know that the cost will be faced in 10 years. Have you considered a public-private partnership to finance the project? No one knows how the land price will go. Have you estimated the price that you can sell your land at? Can you actually generate revenue from selling your land? In Hongshui-kyu, in northern Metropolis, we have quite a number of lots available. I think that we can better develop the area. I know that you have put in much efforts on providing greening and landscaped areas and green facilities, infrastructure for pedestrians and so on. I hope that you can make use of products from our country to turn the Northern Metropolis a window display for our country. We should make use of the low air technology or quantum technology. We should adopt quantum lamppost, for example, instead of smart lamppost. I think that we can adopt forward-looking technology in the Northern Metropolis so that people can visit the Northern Metropolis and Hongshui-Q to drive our trading and economy. Permanent Secretary, please. Thank you. The members asked 2 questions. Now we are seeking funding for works projects, but we're actually promoting a public-private partnership in tandem. As mentioned by the member, this will help the government finance the projects. And we think that is great to leverage on market forces because they are more creative. In Hongshui-Q, we are conducting in situ land exchange exercise for landowners if they want to develop the area into offices, for example, and if they meet our requirements, we conduct in situ land exchange for them so that we can expedite the development. On the other hand, we are thinking about this district approach by inviting tenders from developers for site formation and assign certain lots in the land for the developers to develop. I note your comment. When we purchase machinery for works project, we adopt an open and fair approach in procurement. As long as the products fulfill our requirements, we welcome any coming from any countries. And I think that the products from the mainland are rather competitive. So we note the member's comment. Chairman, I hope that you should adopt, I think that you should adopt public-private partnership in not just residential sites, but also commercial lands. And perhaps you can attract enterprises, including top-notch ones, to develop the area. Next, Mr. Yang Wen-kit. We have to form sites to develop Northern Metropolis, and we have to disperse ex-gratia cash allowance or payment. If we do not support the funding proposal, we cannot really develop the Northern Metropolis. I'm more concerned about the DCS, the district cooling system. Let me take Kai Tak as an example. The district cooling system in Kai Tak was developed in 3 phases. Initially, the government said that they will develop the entire DCS in one go, and eventually the DCS in Kai Tak cost some $9 billion. I wonder if we only need 1 phase for the DCS in Hongshui-Q, Hachun, NDA, or will you be seeking funding for other phases of the DCS? I am also concerned about cost overrun for Kai Tak. When you submit the funding proposal in 2008, initially it cost 1.4 and then $3 billion, and eventually it cost $9 billion. So how will you avoid cost overrun for this? project, which cost about $20.4 million. For the DCS in Kai-Tak, ocean waters being used. I wonder where you will put the pumping station of the Hongshui-Kyu Hashin NDA.
The PS said yesterday that we should familiarize ourselves with different new technologies. And in the mainland, there are different district cooling technologies being adopted on the mainland. Have you tried to ascertain what's happening in China so as to lower our costs? Say, for example, in the monorail for Kai-Tak, we're talking about $20 billion. Now it can be slashed to below $10 billion. Half the cost can be cut if technologies are properly adopted, or you would be just modeling after Kai-Tak. I think you should make further studies to cut down the cost. Cooling system. Can I defer to Mr. Poon of the EMSD? Mr. Poon. Thank you, member, for your question. There are 4 parts to your question. First, on application for funding. We will be applying for funding in stages. We are applying for $3.2 billion. We mainly laid the pipes, and it doesn't include the chiller plants, another E&M equipment. In 2026, we hope to come again to apply for funding for the chiller plants and other equipment. I understand that member will be very concerned about whether there will be overspending for such major projects. We have learned from the experience in Kai-Tak. We have earlier applied for funding to work on the DCS in Tongchong and Kutong North. The tenders have been returned, and the results meet with our expectations in the cost. So based on this experience, when we do tender for Hongshui-Kyu, we are confident that we will be doing everything properly. And member also noticed that there is not seawater nearby for the plant, and the nearest place to get the water is Deep Bay, and it's around 4 kilometers away, and it is not very cost effective if that distance. The distance is 4 km. So we will be adopting water towers, water chilled technology, and that is similar to the plant in Kutong. And the cost effectiveness will be similar to that powered by seawater. The DCS team, including myself, has visited Qianhai, where there is a major DCS is being built, and part of it has commenced operation, and they are also adopting the water towers technology for cooling, and we are liaising them with them closely. We share experience, and Qianhai the Qianhai operator is also operating the Kutong North and Kai-Tak DCS. So we hope that the operation will be smooth in the future for the Hongshui-Kyu plant. The member is concerned about the funding application again in 2026. How many more phases will there be? Will we be seeking funding in 2028 or 2030? So does it mean that you will be seeking funding for the entire plant in 2026? Do you have any estimates in this regard? Thank you, Chairman. Our guess is that in 2026, we will apply for all the funding at one go. And generally speaking, pipe works will take up 20 to 30% of the cost of this system. As to the exact figure to be applied for, then we are still looking at the situation and also the development of the area. And once we've come up with a sum, we'll seek funding from you. I hope that you can give us the overall figure. It means you said that 20-30%. So it means that the entire system will cost over $10 billion. Please give us clear figures Now, if we give you the green light for 20 to 30% of the cost, it's impossible for us not to approve the remainder. So I hope that you can give us all the figures clearly, or else I would hesitate to give you the green light. I believe that members will think that if the funding application is made too far away, the figures may change substantially. So we will hesitate to give you the nod. So this is our concern. Say, for example, if the timetable is adjusted, say, for example, Kai-Tak, there will be more commercial land, then usage will be higher. But then if commercial land is rezoned to some other uses, the usage will drop. So there are a lot of uncertainties. For myself, I appreciate that. And I hope that the government will understand this. Maybe it's not good to give you, maybe it's not good for the government to give us the figures now. But what the member said about the figure might likely be the case. And hopefully, with the advancement in technology, the costs can go down. I think we should be heading towards that direction. A lot of products which come with a smart technology will get less costly. And I appreciate the fact that the team has gone on site visits to the mainland to understand similar systems. I hope that the cost can be adjusted downwards. I hope that Ms. Young can appreciate that the fact that the government may not give you very clear figures today. Mr. We welcome the development of the Northern Metropolis. I have concerns on 4 aspects. In page 5, it says that the site clearance information works will straddle a long period from 2024 to 2030. So what is the sequencing of the works? So, and then about rehousing. The households, business undertakings, farming land, and so on, land will be resumed from them. It says that in the middle of 2024 and to the Q3 of 25, that will be done. So how would the progress be like? How many households and business undertakings will enjoy the SEGA and the EGAPO? And how will the government make provisions for the EGAPO? I think the government should give us more details. And thirdly, I'm also concerned about stormwater management. The paper says that there will be floodable lakes or storage lakes. But what about modern technologies? So can you give us more details on that? What I mean is sponge systems. And there will be 25,300 units of PRH. What is the ratio among these of public housing, GSH, and so on? Would you be doing something to help young people to buy their own flats? Will you be doing something to help them to own or to buy a flat here? Ms. Ho, 4 questions from the member. I would like to defer to Ms. Ho to talk about drainage systems and the design of this sponge city, how that concept will be incorporated into this project. The member's first question. The works schedule straddles a long period from 2024 to 2030. So what will we work on first? First, the works will be taken forward in phases. So once a site is formed, then we will develop it and let the housing authority develop public housing or put it up for sale. So the works will be developed in phases. So priority is this. We will first work on site formation and then build roads. And then other infrastructure facilities, sewage, water supplies, and so on. And then the impact on households and business undertakings. What is the current situation? In the paper, we also mentioned that for phase 2 development will be affecting some 300 odd business undertakings and 1,600 households. And in the first phase, or the first stage, 27 business undertakings and 274 households have to move out. And the Lands Department have made contacts with these 274 houses and 27 business undertakings. Information has been taken from them to assess their eligibility for compensation. Some of the applications are in progress. Others applications have been approved. And in this first, and especially for those who have to depart in the first stage, we would accord priority to handling their cases first. As to your last question, for phase 2 development, the site formed, we would be able to build 25,000 public housing units. So the rental versus subsidized flats ratio is 7:3. And you refer to starter homes for young people. So maybe we'll have to talk to the Housing Bureau to see whether they would like to use this NDA for starter homes. I have to follow up with them further. Ms. Lau, thank you. The concept of sponge city is that, so we would like to come up with design and providing for green space. Now, the stormwater can seep through the ground and be drained away. Now, in the Shui drainage system, we have we will be putting the facilities to meet the drainage needs. We have major floodable lakes, flood prevention facilities. We'll also be revitalizing existing river channels. And by the 2 banks of the river, open space will be provided for public enjoyment, and the stormwater can also drain through these open space to underground. And we would also be improving the drainage systems so that the entire drainage system can meet with the drainage needs in Shui. Another point mentioned is for the flood storage lakes. It covers a vast area. And open space and green space will be provided, so rainwater can seep through these areas as well. Mr. Chen Xiu-hong, thank you, Chairman. I support this Shui Harjun Works project. We're talking about some $20 billion here. It sounds astronomical, but if we're talking about 200 hectares or so, and also all the works and the district cooling are included. So the sum is not unreasonable. And a number of colleagues have talked about paragraph 18 in page 9 about the breakdowns of the different categories. And then, so Annex 20 Annex 26 in Inclusion 1 is also lists the cost breakdown comparisons with other similar projects. So that has to be well recognized. But then leads us into thinking whether for projects in the future, should we be providing similar data? I think that it depends on the scale and the complexity of the project. We should not be adopting across the board approach.
We need to look at the environment of the project. It shows that 79 or 70,000 odd dollars is involved for constructing a road. When we determine if the cost is reasonable, we have to look at the width of the road and the geotechnical areas of the location. If there's slopes surrounding the roads, then it will affect the unit cost of it. The unit cost of the flats has been provided, and I think that is clearer for us when we have this such kind of a comparison. It will facilitate us in understanding the characteristics of each of the projects. Now we have the unit cost of similar projects in the annex of the paper. But there's something that is not shown in the paper. That is, if the unit cost of the flat is calculated on the returned tender price. The reason why I ask this is that I wonder if that's an apple-to-apple comparison. There's another thing that is missing in the paper. The government has this practice to introduce or create this common utility tunnel when they develop new areas, to put utilities of electricity, power, and so on in a single tunnel so that the various government departments will not have to excavate whenever they need to put utilities underground. I fail to see any reference of such tunnel in the paper. If yes, where are these tunnels? 829CL on page 6 of the paper. What items does it belong to, or subheads does it belong to? Mr. Chan's two questions. First, if common utility tunnel has been included in the REX project, the answer is in the affirmative. I will defer to Ms. Lau to talk about that, and she'll explain to you where these tunnels are in the REX project, and she will also let you know where the tunnel is mentioned in the paper. As for a second question, we're actually making up an apple-to-apple comparison in Annex 26 of the paper. We have made reference to the REX project approved by the Ecology, and we made the calculation in the money of the day prices. I would like to clarify something. Now, you made the calculation of unit cost per square meter or per meter. The projects that you have listed are approved 5 years ago. Did you list out the cost in money of the day prices so that we have an apple-to-apple comparison? Ms. Ho, according to my understanding, we made use of the documents back then, and there was a unit cost of MOD back then. And we calculated the unit cost per meter of constructing a road, for example. That there is a time factor at play here. Perhaps Ms. Lee can supplement. Thank you. The price listed or cost listed is the amount approved by the Ecology in money of the day prices, and we have not updated the figure. The member asked about the location of the Common Utility Tunnel CUT. In the town center, there is a primary distributor road D6, and that's where we will put in place this CUT, Common Utility Tunnel. There will be pipelines for electricity and water supply, and the cost is about $1 billion. Or $10 million. The amount is not that substantial. That is why we put it under the items of miscellaneous. Mr. Chikokang, I wanted to ask about the Common Utility Tunnel, but Mr. Chen has put the question, so I will not be asking that again. I would like to ask about enclosure 16 and 17, about the number 2 pumping station and the flood storage lakes and the freshwater reservoir. Very often, the government will provide for sports ground or basketball court on the rooftop of the pumping station. And there's a project where the government provide for certain sports facilities on the rooftop of government projects and pumping station. I think that these ideas are very creative, but I fail to see any such a design in the plan in your paper. If you cannot provide for such a facilities in this REX project, will you be doing so in the upcoming projects that you have? Thank you for your proposal and suggestion. That's a great idea. You mentioned the sewage station in Charcoal Lane. We have adopted this principle of single site multiple uses, and it's very popular among members of the public. When we conduct detailed design, we will try to adopt this single site multiple use approach as well, and we will consider opening up the rooftop for members of the public to enjoy. I thank you on behalf of the people. Next, Dr. Chao-Man Kong. Thank you, Chairman. For the 4 projects under the Hongshui-Kyu Hachin NDA, some $30 billion are involved. As mentioned by a number of members, we have a fiscal deficit, and we discussed Kutong North, Fanlin North projects in the panel on development meetings. I supported the projects as well. And those projects cost about $32 billion. The 2 proposals combined would cost about $60 billion. I wonder if we can save or make some savings. I would like to talk about the district cooling system. I looked at the report of the Audit Commission, and they said that there is some facilities that are out of order and the temperature is lower than the requirement. I know that not all systems can be as stable or as perfect. When we create this district cooling system in the area, then we are actually wiping out the air conditioning trade, because we will no longer be using air conditioners in the traditional sense. The Secretary for CEC answered that this is just the first phase of the project. And he said that the cost recovery period is 30 years. If it takes 30 years to recover the cost, it means that we cannot recover the cost, because for traditional air conditioners, we have to replace it once every 3 to 6 years. So how can we deal with the problem? Should we build it, not build it? If we are to construct the DCS, how can we keep the cost of maintenance low? We now supply electricity and water. Can we engage companies to supply heat? I know that you will install chilled water plants in a number of places within the NDA. I don't think that you can complete it with some $30 billion or $3 billion. For the Kutong North and Fanlin North NDA, well, there is cycle track, and there is also cycle track in the proposal in question here, and it costs some $1 billion to construct the cycle track. Can you face the construction? Do we really have to build such a comprehensive network? Because, as I mentioned, $1 million are involved. Ms. Ho? The members, a few questions. They mostly have to do with the DCS. Before I defer to Mr. Puen. When we decide which NDA should have DCS built, we consider a host of factors. Because DCS actually serve non-domestic buildings. For example, office buildings, schools, hospitals, and so on. So we will have to see if there is enough demand from the non-domestic buildings so that the construction of DCS is cost-effective. When we plan for NDA, that's what we consider before we put in place a DCS. Mr. Puen will give you further details on the DCS. We try to save as much construction costs as possible, and we have considered it for this proposal as well. Ms. Lau will tell you how we saved on construction costs in this proposal. Mr. Puen? Thank you, Chairman and member, for the question. The Audit Commission gave us some proposals and suggestions on our Kai-Tak NDA. We have made relevant adjustment. As a result of the suggestions, as the temperature of the water was rather low, and we have made relevant adjustment to keep the temperature at the required level. As for the cost recovery period of 30 years, not all systems can be used for 30 years. That's true, but when we calculate the cost recovery period, we have considered the replacement of certain parts of the system. Now, for the DCS to run, we will keep all the chiller plants at a single location. There will be chilled water pipes and plants to be involved. So when we have to lay the pipes and build the plants, the air conditioning trade will need to participate as well. And we also need the professionals from the trade to maintain and repair our plants and pipes. What's different with the DCS is that we consolidate all the systems or plants in one place. Ms. Lau? When we come up with a design for example, flood storage lakes, we have made reference to good design, and we have worked with academic institutions to make use of computer models to come up with design that is more cost-effective. In terms of design, we try to standardize the size of the parts so that contractors can make use of MIC models. We also ask the contractor to make use of innovative technology, for example, BIM technology, smart construction system, and so on.
下一位陸仲。
Next one, Mr. Michael Look. Thank you, Chairman. For this works project, the cost is really high, close to $30 billion, and it is part of the Northern Metropolis project. Hongshui and Haojin is a vast area and provides employment opportunities. We should gatekeep and try to shrink the cost as much as possible. In enclosure 1, there is a part, page 9, which is about the average cost. Well, subjectively speaking, they look expensive. For example, at Great Roads, 76,900 per meter. Footbridges is even higher, close to $1.2 million per meter. Of course, some members just now mentioned the roads may be wide or may be narrow. So can we use another unit to show the unit cost, say, for example, the per square meter, take into consideration also the width? Would that work better? Facilitate our analysis. So that's point number 1. And then we also emphasize new quality production forces. And for this major project, we will be adopting new concepts, new technologies to lower the cost. Say, for example, for this vast NDA, we know that the works have to be divided into phases. Well, you haven't taken out any tenders yet, right? So would you be doing an consolidated tender exercise, so to speak, so that the contractors can deploy equipment, procure materials all at one go to achieve economy of scale? Has the government considered various ways to leverage the concept of new quality production forces? I don't see any new concepts or new measures adopted to lower the costs. And then also I'm also concerned about the development of cycle tracks. How long is the cycle track? What is the unit cost in building cycle track? Cost per meter, and also the unit cost for building noise barriers. Last question on housing units. 25,300 public housing units. We welcome that, but there are 2 pieces of information is lacking. The ratio among the different public housing, for HOS, subsidized sales, flats, and PRH ratios. We understand that the ratios matter, but let's not repeat what has happened in Tinshui. There are just too many public housing units, and as a result, the community has become unbalanced in its population structure. And then also the size of the public housing unit. We are concerned about quality as much as quantity. What is the average size per unit? Any plans? Can you briefly talk about the public housing, because you have already mentioned about the ratio concerned, and then maybe you can relate the members' views to the Housing Bureau, because after all, we should be focusing on works today. Ms. Ho, several questions there. First, comprising the costs. We are seeking around $30 billion. That comes under the CEDD portfolio. We will be working on 7 contracts, and for each contract, we will be able to achieve economy of scale. And that can be reflected in the construction cost. Well, I think through the tendering exercise, we will be able to get a competitive bid. And then we also be talking about a district-based development approach. We hope that we can invite developers to work on the entire district and put the district to different uses. So the developer will be responsible for the site information infrastructure works, and ultimately they can retain certain plots for development themselves. So there is another approach to introduce market forces. This is a new approach. And then cycle tracks. Can I defer to Ms. Lau to supplement? You mentioned about housing. Like what the chairman said, we will relate your views to the Housing Bureau. For Hong Shui Q, and there will be around 67,000 flats to be supplied. How many of them will be public and private housing? It's 55 to 45. It's not 7 to 3. So we attach importance to the supply of private housing there. I'll hand over the floor to Ms. Lau. In second phase development, the cycle track will be 15 kilometers. The unit cost, I will provide you with the information later. What about noise barriers? Information to be supplied later. Mrs. Regina Yip. Chairman. Well, the total cost for the development is around $30 billion. And last week, a bills committee scrutinized a FS motion, and that will be voted on by the council. The ceiling of bonds will be raised to $500 billion to finance infrastructure projects. So will this $30 billion be coming out of this $500 billion? P.S. Like what the member said, the FS in his latest budget has mentioned about infrastructure bonds. For Northern Metropolis projects, well, they will be covered. The details of the infrastructure bonds have still to be mapped out by the FSDB colleagues. By taking reference from the issuance of green bonds, the amount coming from the green bonds will be plowed in to the Capital Works Reserve Fund. The projects to benefit include the projects which are implemented 2 years before and after the issuance of the bonds. So I cannot say for sure now whether our projects will benefit from the bond issuance. Anyway, we'll have to wait for the details to be mapped out. Even if we fail to benefit from this project, but for other Northern Metropolis projects, they will be able to be covered. Thank you very much for your explanation, because we're going to approve for the bond issuance amounting to $90 to $130 billion. And then the $500 billion will be for the use of infrastructure projects in the next 5 years. So if North Metropolis projects are to be covered, please tell us so. And then for the Hongshu Q Hachin development, a lot of the development works have to do with economic activities. Say there will be 2 million square feet of office space, and we're talking about 411 hectares. commercial industrial floor areas will be 6.3 million square meters, and 150,000 employment opportunities will be created. Can you tell us the details of the job opportunities? We are going to integrate with the GBA progressively. A lot of Hong Kong people will go to work in GBA, and a lot of Hong Kong people are enjoying the services in the GBA, including the healthcare services, dental services, optometrist services, and so on. And some people from the GBA are going to Hong Kong, of course. So what kind of job opportunities are you talking about? And you know that the worldwide, say in New York, San Francisco, well, there has been a high vacancy ratio in commercial buildings, and people don't visit malls anymore. So what kind of jobs are you talking about here? Ms. Ho. Thank you, member, for your question. I think Hung Shui Kiu has a geographic advantage. It is close to Qianhai and Nansha, and there will be a cross-boundary railway connecting Hung Shui Kiu Station to the two places I mentioned, and even to further into the inner areas of Qianhai. So we want very much to build a business district around Hung Shui Kiu Station. The member mentioned that there will be 6.4 million square meters gross floor area of industrial and commercial areas, and that will be 1 million square meters around the Hung Shui Kiu Station. We hope that financial services, insurance services, accounting, legal services with a disadvantage in Hong Kong can be built there, and there will be offices of these industries there to attract people from Qianhai and Nansha, and enterprises there to make use of Hong Kong to go to the international community. And maybe international enterprises would like to use Hong Kong as a springboard to access the China market. They can pick this location as their office. It is not just only close to the mainland, but also to the airport. So what are the 150,000 jobs? The figure is arrived at based on the size of our commercial space. So half of the jobs will come from, say, offices in these commercial land, and the other half will come from the modern logistics industries. There will be around 60 hectares of land for logistics uses, because the area is close to the mainland, and there is the Hong Kong Shenzhen Western Highway. So half of the jobs will come from the modern logistics industries. Mr. Tang Fei, I think this is a good project, and the information is detailed, like what some colleagues said, especially in the enclosures. They are very different from papers provided by the administration in the past. There were artists' impressions and colors. So to facilitate comprehension by even a layman. So can you give me more information about the SEGA? Because the paper mentions that irrespective of the size of the household, they will be able to get $600,000. The government has consulted the public up to 2015 on this project. There has been inflation, and you are giving a standard amount of $600,000 irrespective of the size of the household. Have the residents told you, or the district councillors there told you, that the amount should go up? Has there been such a view expressed? Secondly, we are looking at a DCS project, and there are quite a number of schools to be built in the area. And to my understanding, the village school has already been suspended. And in Yunlong, the school network 72 for primary school will not be affected. But for other school networks near Hachun, there are some 22 primary schools. Well, during the works period, will there be any adverse impact to the schools? Because there might be noise, nuisance, and pollution and so on. So what are the mitigation measures?
Ms. Ho, Mr. Chen put two questions. I will defer to Ms. Lau to talk about the noise mitigation measures that we have during construction so that there will not be any nuisance caused to the surrounding environment during construction. For the $600,000 of cash allowance, do the existing household think that is enough? This $600,000 is just one of the options under our rehousing and compensation arrangement. For eligible households, they sometimes prefer dedicated rehousing estate or other options, including rental housing under housing authority. There aren't a lot of affected households choosing $600,000 cash allowance. We've not heard people saying that is not enough. And the affected households are actually happy with the level of compensation. I would defer to Ms. Lau. Near the schools, there will not be projects of construction with substantial noise. Anyhow, we will put in place noise barriers to minimize noise nuisance, and we will establish a liaison team to maintain close liaison with the concerned groups and local residents during construction. And we will put in place mitigation measures when there's any complaints. Next, Mr. Holden Chow. Thank you, Chairman. This Hongshui-Kyo Hachien NDA is crucial to the development of Northern Metropolis. If I may, I would like to put a question. Because yesterday, very unfortunately, a fire broke out in the dedicated rehousing estate in Hongshui-Kyo. Members of DAB and I were at the scene, and we stayed until 2 a.m. in the morning, and we helped with the excavation. Very fortunately, the tower crane did not collapse, and that is why eventually the residents did not have to evacuate. The site was used to build a dedicated rehousing estate for affected households of the NDA. Permanent secretaries touched on this subject earlier on. I hope that the administration would let us know if the rehousing arrangement would be affected by the fire. I would like to draw members' attention to page 28, that is enclosure 3 of the Annex 1. Near Hachun, there is go down and logistics sites, and at the blue portion, there's housing, and then we have commercial land, and further down the map, you will notice a gray area that is designated as other uses. I wonder if you have any plans for this gray area for other uses. If you look at the map, for the pale blue housing area and the commercial site, next to them there is an industrial site. I know that there will be a P1 road with innovative design. For sites for logistics and go down uses, the traffic volume will be huge. We also have commercial and housing sites. I wonder if the traffic situation will affect the people using the commercial land and the residents living in the area. I know that there will be a new P1 road. Will that be able to accommodate to the volume of traffic generated from the go down and logistic uses? I will defer to Ms. Lau to talk about if P1 can cater to the traffic demand arising from the land uses. For the first question, regarding the fire that broke out yesterday, the dedicated rehousing estate is under the purview of the Development Bureau. After the fire has been put out, we will follow on the matter with the Housing Authority to see if the fire will affect the progress of construction of the relevant rehousing estate. We have another dedicated rehousing estate nearby with population intake at the end of this year. We don't think that that will be affected, and we have other supply of housing estates in other locations, and we will follow up on the matter with the Housing Authority. Ms. Lau, please. We have enough VC capacity in the P1 road. My apologies, I've missed out on the other questions regarding the land for other uses. About 5 hectares have been reserved for a self-financed higher institutions. The Education Bureau will see which higher institutions will have a campus there, and some parts of the gray area will be used for the DCS, the district cooling system. Next, Mr. Tang Ka-piu. I would like to ask about the 5 hectare of site that will be used for a campus of a higher institution. One of our advantage is the performance of our tertiary institutions. We have outstanding high-end outcomes that attract foreign talents to Hong Kong. Is the 5 hectares of land enough for such kind of a development? I know that we have fewer and fewer students, but a lot of tertiary institutions are forging on, and some institutions are trying to become tertiary institutions. Can we further expand the site for post-secondary institution? In northwestern New Territories, we have the largest population of students. I hope that we can expand the site for post-secondary institution. Hong Shi Q is very important because it's next to Qianhai and is connected by some significant infrastructure projects. It's also very close to Dongguan, and it's a very important strategic location in the new Greater Bay Area. There are a lot of factories, manufacturing industry, or factories that are owned by Hong Kong people in Dongguan. I think that it's easier for us to collaborate with the Dongguan government and the industry there because our culture are very similar. So in terms of interfacing, have you considered collaborating with the industry in Dongguan? Thank you. The member's 2 questions. He thinks that the 5 hectares of land is not sufficient. In the Northern Metropolis, as mentioned, we will reserve 60 hectares of land to create a Northern Metropolis University town. When we come up with proposal for land use for New Territories North, Newtown, and Gaotan May area, you will see more land reserved for post-secondary institutions. As to whether or not this 5 hectare of land in Hongshui is sufficient, we can talk to the Education Bureau about that. Hongshui is of some 400 hectares. We will see if we can expand the site for education purposes. As for the city in Dongguan, this being Haiwan, we've talked to our counterparts in the mainland, and we recognize the importance of Bin Haiwan in Dongguan because it is close to Hongshui, because Hongshui is to the west of New Territories. So we've been trying to learn more about Bin Haiwan through our counterparts in the mainland. Thank you. Next, Mr. Louis Long. Thank you, Chairman. As mentioned by my colleagues, I think that we should commend the set of paper prepared by the government because it's very comprehensive. The permanent secretary said that for large projects, they would adopt the same approach in preparing the paper. I think that if we can have a set of document as detailed as the one that we have in question today, then that will facilitate our understanding and scrutiny of the proposal. I have some broad ideas and comments. Hongshui is crucial in the development of the Northern Metropolis. I hope that you have learned from the experience in Kutong North and Fanlin North development. When you adopt this enhanced new town approach, you should conduct in situ land exchange exercise, and I hope that the price should be on par with the market level. Because the timeline of development of Hongshui is even shorter than that of Kutong North and Fanlin North, because it will end on the 31st of March next year. Please keep in close liaison with the stakeholders so that we can leverage on market forces to develop the area. Now I have a more micro kind of question. Paragraph 42 of the paper. Regarding felling of trees and replanting. According to paragraph 42, you have to fell some 7,815 trees. 20 trees will be replanted within the project site. $3,734 trees will be planted, and also 490,000 shrubs will be provided. Do you have a ratio of compensatory planting? Because you are felling some 7,000 trees and planting only 3,000 trees. Do you have a ratio that you have to follow? In Annex 28, you propose to fell some trees and retain and replant some trees. Ficus is close to my heart. Some ficus and trees are felled, but some of them are rather healthy. But for trees of average condition, you retain them. For T1737 and T2059 and T1736 and T1735. I don't really understand why you don't conserve them. You should be felling trees with poor health conditions.
準備。
Ms. Ho, P.S. Can I defer to Ms. Lau to talk about the issue on trees? As to whether we should fell a certain tree, we will be mindful about the health of that particular tree and also the needs of the works. Maybe it is sited on a strategic location and we have to fell it. So Ms. Lau can explain further. As for in situ land exchange, the member has reminded us through various occasions that we should be closer to the market in what we do. We would like to work together with the private developers and landowners to do the best job in developing the NDA. And we have gained certain experience in past projects, and going forward, we aim to do a better job. Ms. Lau, please. Thank you. When we look at the trees as to whether they should be retained, well, we will try to keep them as much as possible. If they are located at our developable area, inevitably we have to remove them. And then we have to look at whether they're suitable for replanting. The member mentioned several trees. We will be looking at whether they are suited to replanting. Well, according to our guidelines, if a tree is to be planted, we need a vast volume of soil, and we need an area which is 8 to 10 times of the diameter of the trees. For stronger trees, we need even a bigger diameter. And for the two trees, 1736 is 2.8 meters, and 2059, 1735. The tree is in bad condition, it's not suited for replanting. And then for 2059, the diameter is 1.8 meters, is quite big. So if we have to find a site to accommodate that, it's quite difficult. So the conclusion is that after the experts' opinions assessment, it is not suited for replanting. So felling is opted. You would be planting new trees and you will be felling some trees. Is there a certain prescribed ratio, or is it that you will try to replant as much as you can? This is a major site information work. We don't have enough space to replant all the felled trees. Like what the chairman said, we would replant as much as possible, say at the roadside, at garden and park and so on. And I also noticed that some trees which will be retained are in poor condition. But you have to deal with these trees in poor condition, or else they would not be able to be retained. And as a result, the number of trees will go down. So please take note of that. So members, we have around 10 minutes to go before the scheduled end time. And 2 members will be speaking for the first time, and 2 others have indicated that they would like to ask a second round. After Mr. Michael Tan has asked his question, if you would like to ask a question, please indicate so as soon as possible. We would like to extend the meeting time for a bit. Oh, well, the longest by 15 minutes. And for the second paper, I'm afraid we won't be able to deal with it in the interest of time. So please note that, Mr. Michael Tan. Thank you, Chairman. The government will be resuming brownfield sites, and many of the sites of our logistics purposes, they will be reprovisioned in Hongshui, Q in the multi-story buildings MS space. Chairman, my own vision is that for the long-term development of Hong Kong, we should do this. In recent days, while we've been learning about the spirit of the 2 sessions President Xi Jinping proposed a new quality productive forces for logistics industries, and including my own chain stores. Well, we are in a backward mode of operation, and we have our logistics facilities scattered all around, and it's difficult for vehicles to go through them, and then we have to wait a long time for the lifts in the buildings, and there are so many problems. And I am running my own logistics facilities, and the efficiency is very low. Now, young people are involved in logistics these days, and they're professional. And if the lorries can actually go upstairs to the top of the building, that would be good, and the industry can prosper as a result. And we're thinking that we should outsource all our logistics operations to them, and then we'll move to the. So I'm very optimistic about this facility. So the P1 road is very important. Now, there are many goods coming from Shenzhen Bay to Hong Kong. The P1 is 3.2 km long, is underneath the Western Highway. So Hongshan Western Highway. So are there any traffic lights? Now, for Shenzhen Bay, it's a 3-lane dual carriageway. For P1, it's 2-lane dual carriageway. So I have a question mark. So the wide roads will narrow down when they come to P1. Now, if a lot of people move into the area, what will you do? Would there be space around P1 for further widening of the road? And then for eastern part of Guangdong, there will be a lot of people, a lot of cargoes coming through Liantang. And I believe that you would be relying on the 23 km Northern Metropolis Highway. Now, for the Northern Metropolis Highway, when it gets to Tinshui, the road ends. And from Tinshui to P1, the distance is around 2 km. What road will be built? Is it a one-way dual-lane carriageway? Why won't you connect these two areas or 2 points? So a lot of goods are coming from the mainland to Hong Kong, some in the east and some the west. So what is your overall plan for the roads for all these cargoes, Ms. Ho? The member referred to the building Hongshui into a logistics hub. I'll have to defer to Ms. Lau to elaborate on the road issue. But before handing the floor to her, the member is right in pointing out that in Hongshui, we should be reserving 60 hectares of land for logistics uses. Well, 60 hectares is equal to 3 Victoria Park. So this is a very suitable site for logistics industries, and I hope that the development will be successful. As for the transport or road support facilities, can I defer to Ms. Lau to supplement? Thank you, member, for your question. For P1 road and for vehicles going down from Sham Kong Western Highway to P1, there is a roundabout in Harchun, and there will be 4 more roundabouts. 4 locations where the highway will lead to the Hongshui Will. So you have to go through all the way through P1 before you can get to Hongshui Kyo Hachun. And the design of the P1, we have provided for enough residual capacity, and if needed in the future, we will be able to deal with any future upcoming demand. Now, on a longer term basis, is there a need to widen P1? We have to look at the situation. Yes, there will be space nearby. Well, there are hills on the 2 sides. I'm not certain whether there will be space to widen the road. But the 3 lanes will change to 2 lanes in the future. The residual capacity is 50%. Well, we never come up with the correct figures in our estimates. Now, in case you have the estimates wrong, this doesn't mean that there is going to be a big problem and P1 can't be widened. My question is very simple. Is it possible to widen P1 if needed? I'm not asking whether there is a need now. Director, we haven't studied the issue, so I can't give you an answer now. Now, what about vehicle coming from the east in through Liantang, using Northern Metropolis Highway to go to Tinshui Wai, and from the Tinshui Wai to the logistics park, there is a stretch of 2 kilometers, which are really village roads. So what are you going to do about it? Ms. Ho? Chairman, let me try to take that question. To my understanding, the TLB has studied into it to the west of the Northern Metropolis Highway. Where should it stop or end? That is a reasonable extension, or the one you mentioned. But back then, if we extend further west from Tinshui Wai to Sham Western Highway, they have some cost consideration. But anyway, we would relay your suggestion to the TLB. Well, a quick one here. From after Tinshui Wai, we are not going to the Western Corridor. I'm talking about Tinshui Wai to P1 to the Logistics Park. Well, that stretch is a 2 kilometers village road. That is where the problem lies. And so the cargoes coming through Liantang to Northern District to the Logistics Park, well, they will run into problems. So can Ms. Ho follow up on that and then further talk to Mr. Ten? Next one, Mr. Junius Ho, Dr. Junius Ho. We have been discussing this the Hongshui Kyo Hachun development project for a long time, and right now we are coming to the approval of the funding. I support it. We have to protect the trees, preserve the environment. These are all our concerns. But have you considered the protecting or preserving the environment of the 10 or so villages along Hongshui Kyo and Hachun? What about the people there? Have you made consideration for them? And in paragraph 29, you said that there are some objecting views. And because you are spending some $34 billion to resume the land, the model of land resumption is similar to what you did in the past. You would be resuming the brownfield sites in Harchun, and then the problem arises as to how you're going to reprovision for the brownfield sites. And then we have the indigenous villages. Have you cared for them? Well, it's okay for you to build roads and parks in the area. When we are concerned about or focus on the development and what will happen to the 180,000 people living there? We are creating 150,000 jobs, I know. But would you be improving the conditions of the indigenous villages? People are living there. So have we earmarked any funds to improve the conditions? Well, we want to have harmonious coexistence of rural and urban areas, and some tens of thousands of people are living there. Would you be improving the footpaths? In your development proposal, more attention and resources should be devoted in this area. Now, these villagers have to suffer all the nuisance created during the construction period. So you have to improve the communities there. But I don't see anything mentioned in the paper about taking care of these people.
Ms. Ho, Permanent Secretary. Thank you, Dr. Ho, for the comment. I absolutely agree with you, and we have not forgotten about the indigenous villages in the new development area. We hope that we can join hands in improving the environment. In paragraph 14 of the paper, there is a mention of how the indigenous villagers can be benefited. We will be proposing an L35 road in the new development area, my apologies, to redistribute the traffic flow of Pingha Road so that it's more convenient for the indigenous villagers living there to travel or go out or commute by cars. Indigenous villagers are also concerned about sewage, so we will be putting in place a more improved set of sewage facilities. As mentioned in the paragraph, where technically feasible, we will connect the village sewage system to the sewage manholes to be reserved so that the sewage system of the villages can be connected to the public system more easily. Chairman, can you share with us the amount to be spent on improving the environment for indigenous villages? Because not a lot of villagers like to spend money on beautifying their environment. When we are developing new development area, I think that we should beautify the villages nearby as well, so that there will not be a stark difference. If you don't improve the environment for the indigenous villages, it will become more and more dilapidated over the years. Apart from improving the sewage system, how are you going to improve the appearance of the villages? Perhaps the administration can follow up on Dr. Ho's comment, and some of the points are under the purview of the Home Affairs Department, I believe. I've given more than 4 minutes for members to speak, and there's still 2 members who would like to speak for the second round. I hope that we can vote on this item today. So for the 2 members who would like to speak for the second round, including Mr. Lau Kwok Fund and Mr. Chow Siu Hong, I will control the time more stringently. Each member will have 3 minutes. Mr. Lau Kwok Fund. Thank you, Chairman. I would like to follow up on the questions that I put in the first round. If you cannot address them, you can give me a written submission. You said that you review the compensation amount on land resumption. I know that you can only start resuming land when the construction has been ongoing. And I know that the land resumption ordinance has been amended in 1st of September last year. And under the amended ordinance, the government can resume land prior to the development. The rules have changed, so can you change the ways you do things or resume land under this proposal? A lot of members talked about public-private partnership and in-situ land exchange. We can conduct in-situ land exchange for residential and commercial sites. Hongshui Q, Hachun, NDA is the first area where we have in-situ land exchange for both residential and commercial sites. For the northwestern new territories, we only had residential in-situ land exchange, and the government has published the land premium price for 10 districts. For land premium for non-domestic land, I don't think that we should standardize the price of the land premium for all of the residential sites or residential sites. For grade 8 office site is $24,000 per square meters. For logistics sites, the land premium is also $24,000 per square meter. Do you think that people will conduct in-situ land exchange with a price of $24,000 per square meter for land premium? For the development parameters of Town Planning Board, can we adjust the plot ratio, for example, for in-situ land exchange? For Hongshui Q, we have over 1 million square meter of commercial site. Will the demand stay the same in the future? Should we convert some of the commercial sites into residential site, for example? Permanent Secretary, thank you for your comment. Regarding timetable for land resumption, we note your comment. As for public and private partnership, you've made an excellent point. This is the first time that we introduce in-situ land exchange for commercial or an industrial site. As for the standard price of land premium, we will review that regularly. As for development parameters, I'm sure you're familiar with it. The Town Planning Board set a certain development parameters for different land uses, and if developers want to relax the parameters, they can make such applications. Next, Mr. Chan Xiu-hong. I would like to follow up on the district cooling system. 3 questions. Phase 1 of the DCS is proposed today. I hope that after the meeting, the government can give me more information so that we can learn more about stage 2 of phase 1 of the project and phase 2 of the project, so that we can scrutinize the DCS more comprehensively. That's my first question. Second, according to the administration's experience, what model are you adopting in the DCS? Are you adopting build to design, or have you considered BOO model, so that government don't have to pay upfront a large sum of money? According to the supplementary information submitted to the LegCo, the government proposes to adopt a certain technology to enhance the operational capacity of the district cooling system. But adopting this double plant building, I'm concerned about the stability and reliability of the system. For the chilled water plant number 1 and 2, you said that they operate individually and separately. If one of the plants go down, can the other plant cater to the demand? If one of the plants break down, will the user building still be able to have air conditioning? Mr. Pun will take the question. Thank you for your question. You ask for supplementary information for next stage of the works of the DCS. We will submit relevant information after the meeting. We will adopt this bill to operate model for this phase of the development of the DCS. We keep an open mind to the models that we can adopt. And we are actually looking at the feasibility of adopting the BOO model. We are using this double plant building, double distribution method. The reason why we put the 2 plant buildings in different locations is that we want to offer chilled waters to different user buildings in different locations. The 2 plant buildings are connected. If one of the buildings breaks down, then the other plant building can supply chilled water. But a single plant cannot meet all the demand, because if that's the case, we have to put in place a large amount of machinery. We have backup system. So we don't think that any of the plants will completely break down. And we have the capacity to handle repair and maintenance of the plant buildings. All the members who would like to put questions have made their comments. I will put this item to a vote. Will those in favor of the proposal set out in paper PWSC bracket 2024-25-1 raise their hands? Those against, please raise their hands. None. I think that the members who voted on the item are in favor of the proposal. This proposal is endorsed. As to whether or not the Finance Committee should further discuss this item in accordance with Rule or Paragraph 41A of the PWSC procedures, I put the item to a vote, or the question to a vote. This subcommittee recommends the Finance Committee further discussing the proposal set out in paper PWSC bracket 2024-25-1. I remind members that if this question is passed, it means that the subcommittee recommends the Finance Committee further discussing this paper. If the question is negative, it means that the subcommittee does not recommend the Finance Committee further discussing the paper. Will those in favor of the question please raise their hands? Those against, please raise their hands. Eight in favor, 6 against. I think that the members who voted are in favor of the question. This question is passed. The subcommittee recommends the Finance Committee further discussing paper PWSC bracket 2024-25-1. The agenda item is concluded. Thank you, government officials and members, for attending this meeting. In the interest of time, the next item will be discussed in the next meeting instead. Thank you, everyone. The meeting is concluded.